Welcome back to Inspired or Acquired. This is the podcast where we interview real business owners, talk real numbers, and ask them whether or not they would sell their company. So we have a really interesting episode today. Chris Edwards out of Steamboat, Colorado, recently just sold his flooring business that he had acquired a few years prior. So he's joining us today to talk about that whole journey and that decision and lessons learned there. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Clint Fiore, business broker out of Texas. So Chris, how are you, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Patrick, and you too, Clint. Yeah, doing good. Today's my final day of being a transitioning business owner. So after this, I've got nothing but time in my hands. But yeah, doing good.
Funny timing that we're recording today. So the sale officially closed, a few weeks ago?
Closed October 1st. Yeah,
okay.
Beginning of the month.
Awesome, man. Congratulations. So for folks who don't know, maybe just back us up, give us your background and why you did a search and what led you to buying affordable flooring a few years ago.
Sure. So 4 years ago, middle of the pandemic, I quit my job almost exactly 4 years ago, October of 2020, to look for a small business to acquire. Kind of got into the entrepreneur through acquisition world and decided I wanted to go that route. So I quit my job, kind of burned the boats, metaphorically speaking, and sought out to acquire a small business as a self-funded search, and ended up getting under LOI for the company that I ended up acquiring, Affordable Flooring Warehouse, pretty quickly after I started my search. And so went through the normal kind of due diligence phase, raised an SBA debt, and ended up closing on it in February of 2021. And, at that point, jumped into operator mode. Definitely a very intense period for the transition, learning flooring, learning how to run a small business. I was in the consulting and, kind of corporate finance world prior to that. So a lot to learn about small business and definitely got a crash course. Basically, operated the business for about 3.5 years. I think we did a lot of good things to it. I walked into sort of your prototypical sort of boomer owned business, which was, paper-based, no processes, kind of a broken culture, and, hired new people, installed systems, kind of brought a new technology stack to the company, really streamlined a lot of the operations. So I ended up growing EBITDA quite a bit, basically doubling EBITDA from when I acquired it. Grew revenue pretty substantially as well. Had a really good run for 3.5 years and learned a lot. And put it on the market about probably 4 or 5 months ago. Did a sort of same thing. I had a broker. It got under LOI pretty quickly after that as well. Went through actually a really smooth, deal process, due diligence process. I can't imagine it couldn't have gone any smoother. And ended up closing, like I said, at the beginning of the month of October. So, like I said, today's my final day of being contractually obligated to be here on site. So after that, I've got 2 more months where I'm available to the new owner via phone. But as of today, I am basically done being here in person. So that's the quick and dirty.
That's awesome, man. Who is your broker? Do you want to give them a shout out?
Chris Cantwell at Transworld Business Advisors. He was actually the same broker that the previous owner of Affordable Flooring used during our deal.
Okay.
So I had a really positive experience with him. So shout out Chris Cantwell.
Super cool. Yeah, treat your buyers well and they can turn into sellers. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so did you say you got an SBA loan or what? How'd you finance this?
Yeah, SBA loan is basically the deal was 10% equity, 10% seller note, 80% SBA.
Right on.
Did you have some investors with the equity?
Nope, it was just me, totally self-funded, no outside investors at all.
And in this whole process, you had your first 2 kids all at the same time? Is that
Yeah, I was living in Denver at the time. So my fiance at the time and I moved up here to Steamboat Springs. So that was a big lifestyle change. We got married um, basically 5 months after the deal closed. Um, she got pregnant quickly after that. We had our first kid 9 months after we got married, 10 months after we got married, and then we had another kid about 7 months ago. So a lot of life changes happened for me in the midst of the search through this sale process. My life totally transformed. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
So you got the business, you got the wife, you got the kids, you got the exit, all in what, 3 or 4 year span.
yeah, crazy 4 year run here, but it's been awesome. So really,
That's
really
awesome.
blessed.
Well, congratulations on all those levels, man. Um, I wanted to ask you about Steamboat. You know, like it's such a cool, like I love Steamboat. I know Patrick's a big fan of that area and of Colorado. We both are. I'm sure we're hella jealous of you getting to live out there. Was that part of the plan, or did you just luck into it, or how did you land a deal in such a cool place? And are you going to stick around now, or how'd that work out?
Yeah. So when I did my search, I was location agnostic. I was looking at deals pretty much all over the Rocky Mountain region, from Arizona, New Mexico, up through like Idaho, Montana. So I had a pretty big sort of geographic radius that I was looking at. But I've always loved Steamboat. I've been coming up here since I was a kid. I played in like the youth baseball tournament that's here every summer. So the opportunity to live in Steamboat and operate a small business was really, really attractive. And to get out of Denver and kind of start a new life in an awesome spot like this, it was really enticing. So yeah, it worked out great. I love Steamboat. Northwest Colorado is just beautiful, as Patrick can attest to. He's, his dad lives up here and he frequents up here. But yeah, so I'm a big snowboarder, skier. Love just being outside here, and whether I'll stick around here or not, kind of TBD. I really do like Steamboat. Would love to keep my place up here for sure. So if I had my ideal situation, maybe kind of live in the Front Range of Colorado, sort of like Boulder area, have a place up here and kind of swing between the two. So we'll see what happens. But for now, I don't have any plans of leaving Steamboat.
Cool.
So when it went on the market, were most of your potential buyers from outside the area? I imagine like they had to be pretty serious or well qualified given like the size that you grew it to. But
Yeah, I mean, most of the people that I had kind of prelim tire kicking conversations with were based in Denver, or I mean, there were some people even in like New York and Chicago and stuff. So I'd say there's a lot of tire kickers that like Steamboat. It's one thing to like Steamboat and to like want to visit here, but to live here is a whole different thing, especially as like we approach winter months. So that's kind of what made this deal interesting for me the first time around, is that there's a lot of people that liked the business but just didn't want to live in Steamboat. So you have to find the right person that's like willing to move up here, live the mountain life. It's a different lifestyle, so you had to kind of find that exact right person. And luckily, the buyer that ended up buying me out, he lives in a mountain town pretty close. It's called Eagle, which is like outside of Vail.
Mhm.
And so he knows mountain living, and it was a shorter drive for him than most people. So it was like a perfect fit.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey guys, wanted to take a quick break from the show just to tell you about our companies for a second. I'm Patrick Dichter and I own Apple Tree Business Services. We do quality accounting and tax nationwide. So if you're running a business or looking to buy a business, we'd love to help you out with accounting and tax services. You can find us at appletreebusiness.com. And Clint, tell us about Bison Business.
Yeah, Bison Business is my firm. We do nationwide M&A. So we help people buy and sell companies. Most of our customers have companies in the 1 to 20 million revenue range, profitable businesses. So if you've got one and you're ready to get acquired, you can reach out to us at bisonbusiness.com for a complimentary valuation. We can get you to market and get you sold. If you're a listener that's a buyer that wants to buy a company that size, make sure you're on our email list because we'll send you out deals first before they hit the market anywhere else. But we'd love to serve you anytime you're thinking of acquiring or selling your business. We want to be your first stop at Bison Business.
Awesome. Now back to the show. When did the wheels start turning of like, maybe I should list this thing for sale and see what we can get? Because you went, maybe you could talk about that J curve, but I think you went through the classic, like, J curve of like struggle, what the hell am I doing, to like figuring some things out and getting really good momentum. So
Yeah, I mean, I would say I started kind of kicking the idea around in my head probably at the beginning of the year. To your point, the first year and a half, 2 years, I would say were tough. A lot of like turnover, a lot of drama, kind of turmoil within the business of like, legacy employees. So there was a lot of challenges that we had to overcome. But we just kept grinding through it. I think that J curve is really accurate where, I mean, there was moments where I was like, oh my God, did I just, ruin our lives? What have I done here? We just kind of keep grinding, keep pushing through it. And, it ended up being a really good result. I kind of felt like, at the beginning of the year, I was ready for, new opportunities and to kind of take on a new business and a new project. Felt like I had learned a lot here. Like I mentioned, we had installed really good systems and kind of learned a lot about like culture building and team building and, installing systems and building a robust business. So I kind of wanted to take the learnings that I had here and apply it to something that potentially had, more opportunities for growth. Like Steamboat is a pretty small town. There's only like 10,000 full-time residents here. So there's only so much you can grow to before you kind of like hit your ceiling. And I kind of felt like we had hit that, where it's like, okay, like, I'm not sure we can like double this business here, like it's just not a big enough market. So, there's some other factors involved, but, I kind of felt like, what made the most sense for me was to monetize what we had grown and what we had built, and take those learnings, take that, exit capital and roll it into kind of a new project and a new business. And so I kind of did, pro con list. Do I really want to sell it? I mean, there's a lot of frictional costs involved. Does it really actually make sense for me to exit, or should I just hold on to it, install a manager, kind of that stuff? And I kind of came to the conclusion that I'd rather just, take a W, monetize it, and move on. So that's what we did.
Nice, man. So you grew revenue about 50%, right, in the 3-year period in a geographically confined space. What were the big levers that you pulled to be able to do that?
I think we did a good job kind of branding and marketing. I think we did a good job sort of like, positioning ourselves in the marketplace here, creating compelling offers, being probably the most prominent and most well-branded flooring company in the Valley here, in the Yampa Valley. So that helped. A lot of it I can't take a ton of credit for, I would say. Like, we just had great tailwinds. I mean, COVID, home remodeling, people moving up into Steamboat. Like, there's just so many great, kind of time and place things that fell into place for us. So I think that was huge for our revenue growth. But I think just like, building a great team, solid execution, awesome, customer service. We set a really strong reputation in town. If you look at it, like our Google, My Business profile, it's like much better than a lot of our competitors, or most of our competitors, all of our competitors, I should say. So I just think we just executed well, served customers well, and all that kind of led to strong word of mouth. And like I said, there's a lot of really good tailwinds to our advantage as well.
Okay. I think you're selling yourself short a little bit, but when I visited the store, you got to expand on this. I'll never forget, you showed me like your dual monitors, and you had this whole Notion dashboard built out like I've never seen. I use Notion, and I was just like, holy cow. And can you talk about like some of the operational systems you built out and like some of the offshore support that you develop?
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of one of the first things I did when I came into the business was installing Notion. So my background when I was in consulting was doing CRM implementations. I did like large scale Salesforce.com implementations. So I kind of had that sort of like operational, data structure management type of background and mindset. And like I said, I walked into a situation where there was just papers flying all over the place. There was no real processes or roles that were defined. So we, built out we kind of did like a homegrown CRM for a while within Notion. We eventually kind of scrapped that and moved to a system called FloorZap, which has really helped us grow, just kind of manage our business or lead management processes, our install management processes. So, Notion, we built out a really robust operations manual within Notion of like, here are all the systems and processes for the store. Here's everyone's role. Here's their position agreement. Here's what they're accountable for. Here's their deliverables. And just like brought a lot of structure and just kind of like intentionality to the business that wasn't there before. Everyone just kind of was running with their head cut off a little bit, and being able to just kind of just do basic things like here's the org chart, here's the position agreements, here's everyone's responsibilities, here's how we do sales, here's how we do our marketing processes, here's how we do our lead generation processes, here's how we started running EOS within Notion. So just those kind of basic blocking and tackling things added a lot of structure to the business and just kind of calmed down the chaos that I had walked into. Definitely a huge fan of Notion. People probably see me tweet about it over the years, but I think small businesses have a lot to gain from getting on Notion and installing their sort of processes within that. So and then also, like you said, the offshore team. So we hired a number of offshore sort of virtual assistants that helped with all sorts of aspects of the business, from accounts payable, inventory reconciliation, invoice reconciliation, just calling our suppliers to place orders. That was kind of done in-house before, like in the showroom here, and just being able to sort of like take that off of the people that were here, take that off their plate, which is very time consuming. That was huge. We ended up having like 7 offshore people in the company now. We have an HR manager, a marketing manager, a business analyst, a financial analyst, a couple lead generation specialists, business development manager. So we ended up building a pretty robust offshore team, and they were a big part of our culture and success.
And that's amazing. I almost feel like this is one of the more, I don't want to like say stereotypical, but stereotypical. It's like you're gonna live in the dream that we're Patrick and I are active on social media. You're active on social media. You hear the ETA dream of buying a boomer-owned business that does everything on paper, modernizing it, bringing in some offshore talent to help, all these things, and you're just kind of like walking that out step by step and demonstrating it. And I think there's skeptics out there that say, no, like that's not how this works. That's not how this real world works. But you're living it, and you didn't have a background in flooring, right? Like you never done something like this, right? And you jumped in, and in a few short years, yeah, you had struggles. Yeah, it was hard. None of this is easy, but you did do this. I want to talk through a little bit about just the deal itself. And the other stereotypes are like, and then you can sell it. You can get multiple expansion if you improve the business and improve the systems and improve the EBITDA. Can you talk to me a little bit? You can either use the actual numbers of like, I bought it for this, I sold it for that, or just like multiples of EBITDA. Like, did you see some of that effect by if you improve the business to where it's more appealing to a buyer, you've become a little more dominant player, you've modernized it, you fixed some of the chaotic things of the previous owner. that make it attractive. Did you enjoy some of that that multiple expansion on your deal that you just closed?
Yeah, for sure. It was a lot of hard work to get there. It took years in order to kind of realize that. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I basically bought the business. It was doing like 550K of SDE, but by the time just sold it, it was doing about 1.1 million of SDE. So yeah, I mean, like a 1.1 million SDE business is gonna command a larger multiple. So definitely saw some multiple expansion. I mean, nothing crazy, but definitely another turn on SDE multiple. So definitely saw that. I think the systems and the processes that I installed were huge. Made it much more of an attractive, acquisition target than what I walked into. The offshore team I think was huge in order to, entice, the buyer to, to pay more. So I definitely think that, the multiple expansion definitely was realized for me. I think those things that you're talking about, Clint, of installing processes and bringing in an offshore team, they do add value to the business. So I think that from my perspective, those were smart moves, and they did add equity value to the business, no doubt.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, all business valuation is just a function of what is the cash flow and then what is the risk, and the more you can install processes to where it's not just all wrapped around you as the owner and you're the center of the universe that knows everything, but the more you have those SOPs and those teammates and the marketing programs and all the things that you say, hey, if you want to bring in leads, you pull this lever and this brings in the leads. When you want to quote a job, you follow this SOP and these 5 people are all trained on it and cross-trained and they know how to do that. And that just makes it that much more confident for that buyer to be able to step in and be like, okay, I've really got something here that I feel like I could pay up for versus a basket case that I'm going to have to budget a whole lot more. I'm going to have to hold back more money to fix problems because the previous owner didn't do that. So they will pay up. And it's just good to see this real world example of like you're checking all the boxes, of like what the dream is for a lot of people that come into this space. To buy a suboptimal, subscale business and then do that level up strategy. And I've always said, like, there are levels to this when it comes to multiple ranges too. And I do feel like about $1 million EBITDA is that first kind of big level up where you usually do see higher multiples versus the 6-figure EBITDA companies. And so I've written threads on Twitter where I say, like, man, some of the best deals are that like 500 to 800K SDE. Even though a lot of people, from the traditional search and from bigger schools, like they turn their nose up at those, but I'm like, man, that's just right on the cusp of being able to reach a whole different type of buyer that can pay more, and you can jump into those and do what you just did. So hats off to you, Chris. Like, awesome example of this, and just showing that it does work out like that in the real world if you do your part. I wanted to press into like this season that you're in right now, and how did that feel like just you've been all immersed in this thing. I know how all encompassing entrepreneurship is, and especially when you've got the new family and the babies. I'm sure you've just been like sleeping, breathing this business, and then just whatever time's left is going to your kids and your family, and you don't have much time for anything else. So it's probably been this all-encompassing kind of bubble you've been in. And then as of tomorrow, you don't have to go back in anymore. Has that sunk in yet? And like, I want to see just how are you feeling about this emotionally, and then also, did you do any? Are you getting any trophy? Are you doing any like special thing to commemorate this deal? Are you buying something or doing something? I think that's always a fun question to ask too.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Clint. I appreciate that. how do I feel? I mean, like, honestly, the first few days, like after I closed the deal, was definitely emotional. It was like, because the new owner walks in, and all of a sudden you see him like running the business with your team that you had like constructed and developed relationships with and grew close to, and that was kind of a weird experience. Just kind of seeing, like, I'm just like, right now I'm in like this back office, like completely away from the team right now, just like sitting here by myself. And I've been doing this for the last like 3 weeks. Since the new guy took my desk, and I'm like off in the corner, kind of like just a guy here. So it's
Suddenly not
weird.
important.
Yeah, I'm just not important anymore, which is exactly what I designed it to be. I don't want to be important. I want the business and the systems to be important. So yeah, I mean, honestly, the first week was pretty tough. I was kind of like, man, I really poured my heart and soul into this, and to see it not mine anymore was a weird, kind of surreal experience. Um, but honestly, now I'm happy. I feel good. I'm energized for the next chapter. Kind of just starting to turn my attention to what's next. So I'm looking forward to kind of strategically planning what my next move is and what I'm going to do. So I'm starting to get energized for that. I mean, to your point about my time, like, yeah, like, since I bought this business and I started a family, I've had like no time to myself. I mean, like,
Mhm.
embarrassingly, I only got like 10 days of like skiing in last year. And I live in a ski town, like, I didn't have any time because we had a new baby and my wife was pregnant, and, it's just a lot going on. So I feel like I want to take some time to like enjoy Steamboat and like get out and ski a lot and teach my daughter, who's 2 years old now, how to ski. So I want to kind of do those things that are more kind of Steamboat related that I just haven't really had the time to do. Hopefully Patrick can teach me how to fish at some point here.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so I'm energized for the future. I'm excited for what's next. And for purchasing something, I probably should celebrate more. I'm not really like ready to like patting myself on the back and celebrating, but um, I opened up a bottle of like San Pellegrino bubbly water, so that was like my form of like celebration. So, I don't know, like, I'm not really, I'm not going to buy a Ferrari or anything like that, but, I'll probably, spend some time traveling. We're probably going to do like a nice vacation to Europe or something like that at some point. So hopefully get some good time traveling before I move on to whatever I do next.
Super cool. Well, we're excited to hear where you go with your next chapter.
Yeah. What are you thinking? Like, buy something again, start something, consulting?
Um, I honestly am not sure. I do like the ETA model. I would say, you know, my experience with buying a business and just kind of having immersed myself in the small business space now. It's there's a lot of challenges that come with buying a business and trying to like grow it and like turn it around and make it your own. So if the right opportunity presented itself, I certainly would consider buying another business for sure. Clint, I think that sort of band that you mentioned of like 500 to like 800K SDE EBITDA. I agree with you. I think it's a really sweet spot where you've got lead flow, you've got momentum, but it's still small enough where you can like turn it around and get rid of what doesn't work and kind of you know throw away the bad stuff and install the good stuff. I would say I've learned a lot about throwing out the bad stuff faster, and I know what I would do next time around that I didn't do the first time. So a lot of lessons learned. I could see myself starting fresh and starting something new because I do see the value of kind of building it right from the beginning and not like inheriting a bunch of crap that you may get with an acquisition. So I see the value of both paths. I would say if I were to, do another acquisition, it would kind of be in that band you're talking about, Clint, and probably pretty quickly, rip off the band-aid and throw away stuff that I didn't like. So
Yeah, the common, I think, mistake, I wonder if this applies to you, is, the the common knowledge is that, you're buying an existing business, you don't want to screw it up. So I think there's hesitancy when people jump in to be like, all right, don't change anything, because everybody's like, all right, don't go in and change stuff because you're going to scare everybody off and run everybody off and your business will collapse, and you just sign this big personal guarantee, and it's scary. But I think a lot of people realize, like, man, there was some stuff that everybody was totally cool with me changing, and I waited way too long doing things that didn't make sense out of that fear. And next time, I think I may be a little more aggressive with changing, as long as there's consensus and I can communicate it through with everyone. Like, it's not as scary as you think. And did that play out with you a little bit?
I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying. I would say the only thing I would add there is that it depends on your experience level. I mean, like if I think I played it right the first time around, of like, I was, my philosophy was do no harm and, be a shock absorber, not a shock amplifier. Those are kind of like the edicts that I sort of operated by. So like I walked into a situation and I was like, it was intense. I was pretty far over my skis, I would say. But you just kind of slowly learn, and eventually sort of the chaos and the anxiety you have settles down. So I'm glad I didn't go in there guns blazing the first time, because I think it probably would have gone really poorly. But next time around, now that I've done this before and I kind of have a rep under my belt, and I've got a little more experience, I would feel more confident of kind of installing what I want quicker. I would say to some degree, most small businesses have, I would say almost like majority of things are somewhat broken. There's unfortunately, there's a reason why it's small, right? Like if it was like the most perfectly run business in the world, it would explode with growth and be Amazon. But these small businesses have challenges. That doesn't mean it's not a good business, but there's a lot of things that you kind of need to figure out and turn around. So I think, like next time around, I'd definitely be a lot more aggressive with throwing out the bad stuff and pretty quickly installing the good stuff. And if that causes waves, I feel like I would be able to kind of like be okay with that. And if there's turnover, that's fine. I know what I'm doing now a little bit more, and would feel confident to kind of make those more aggressive decisions.
Yeah, I tell new people that have done that just did their first transition to don't change everything, but change something, and the best thing to change is the thing that everyone says to change. And so if you go around talking to all the employees and you say, hey, where are we leaving money on the table? What's something that we're doing that's just dumb that you wish the previous owner would have changed and never has? Or, you just start picking their brains about, like, basically, are we doing something that doesn't make any sense? Are we doing anything that's just unnecessarily slow or dumb? And if you hear the same answer a bunch of times, there's maybe a pent up change that they want to see happen that the old owner just was resistant to. And that just shows that you're open-minded, you're listening, and then it makes it to where you get a quick win under your belt and the ability to navigate some low-hanging fruit with them. And then that kind of gets you started. So I think that could be, a good starting point. But yeah, like you said, experience is the bigger factor. Once you've done it, it's a lot easier, less scary.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice for sure.
I don't know if we've talked about the hard stuff enough, because people are just going to think that it was a easy street for you. But like, what were one or two things where you're like, holy cow, what's going on here? I don't know if you want to talk about that, or if you maybe talk about like trying to expand into countertops and like what happened there. I don't know, but I feel like we need to, share some of that reality of just the
yeah, for sure. I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, listen, like there were moments of like fetal position, like, fear, like I ruined my life. And I mean, there were times where I thought I wasn't going to make it. I thought like, I'm going to have to go BK, like what have I done? I've taken off too much that I can chew. I mean, I walked into when I bought the small business, there was one key employee that, was had a lot of power and leverage in the business. I would say he was like sort of like mafioso, sort of like tactics, where he like controlled the installers and controlled kind of key accounts, and was very like he knew how to control a lot of the aspects of the business that just gave him leverage, So walking into a situation where I didn't know what I was doing, I had a key employee who was kind of like a gangster in some ways, had all these sort of like side deals and sort of like, things that lined his pockets. Like we it was okay. We got along for a while. We ended up kind of partnering on a countertop business. And, after about like 6 months of that countertop business, I'll just say some not good things came to light, very bad things, and basically made our business relationship untenable anymore. So I exited out of the countertop business. Luckily, there was liquidity there. Basically, one of the installers that worked for me at Affordable Flooring, in a roundabout way, bought me out. He basically like made him buy me out. So I was able to exit and make some money on it, which was great. I thought it was a huge win. Because I thought I had sunk a decent amount of money into this business that I can never get money out of again. I fired him from Affordable Flooring. He basically took, some key installers from the business and started a competing business. So, again, he had like kind of key accounts that he kept close to the chest. He, started a competing flooring store. And that was a pretty intense experience, where you've got like someone in a small town who knows everyone, has been here forever, was at Affordable Flooring for like 8 years prior to my arrival, was definitely like a well-known person in the business, and people did business with him specifically, not necessarily with Affordable Flooring, So he started a competing business, which was scary. He's like, oh my God, he's gonna put me out of business. What's gonna happen? Like it was a really intense few months there. But basically I got really good advice, which is just, hey, listen, don't worry about him. Focus on your business. Build a system, to build processes. And that's what we did. So we really did heads down, focusing on what we could control. Can't control him. He's going to do what he's going to do. And that ended up being, the best year that we ever had. We substantially grew EBITDA, throughout all the turmoil. And he's like talking shit about us to everybody in town. He's like trashing us to everybody he can like talk to. We ended up growing. We ended up installing a lot of great systems. He was just a total anchor to our organization. So, I think a lot of these small businesses have key man risk like that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when they buy these businesses, probably fear losing a guy like that. But in my experience, it ended up working out to our favor in a big way. I think they're struggling hardcore. They're not doing great. And I think we focus on the right things, and we focus on what we can control, and we built a really strong business, and the culture got better, the systems got better, the revenue, the EBITDA got better, everything got better. So, that was like an intense experience, and definitely some dark moments, but ended up working out really well.
Appreciate you sharing that. I know, I just want to make sure that people know the reality, that it wasn't just, uninstall the fax machine and install Notion.
Yeah.
I'm glad you shared that story. Yeah, losing a key employee like that is such a nightmare for most acquirers, and you can survive it. You can get through it. And so, yeah, I've seen situations where that person tries to hold you hostage and use that leverage to their advantage. And you often have that that point of inflection in your tenure as owner. Whereas, are you going to be held hostage? Are you going to get bullied and pushed around? Are you going to stand up for yourself and do what you need to do? And if you got to replace somebody important, know that, you know, nobody should be irreplaceable in a business, including you, the owner. These are organizations that have lived a long time, and people can be replaced, and that nightmare scenario doesn't have to be the end of the story. Like, it can be the beginning of a new page. And so I'm glad you got through that okay, and I'm glad you shared that here.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was one of those things where, yeah, it's a total inflection point. You know what you need to do. You know, at some point, like, enough bad things happen, and you get, you know, and people like this bully you, and they try to hold your company hostage. And at some point, you know what you need to do. You need to rip the Band-Aid off and get on with it. And that's what we did. And it was the best thing that I could have done. It was definitely a transformative experience for me and my business. So if you're in a situation like that, and I've talked to a lot of business owners that are in that situation, my recommendation is, you know, be prepared to let him go, or let her go, and build your business. And like, if it's relying on one person, you don't really even have a business. You have a toxic relationship, and that's not what you want to be.
Truth. Well, we covered a lot today. I don't know, Clay, if you have any other thoughts here, you know, closing questions.
No, I think we covered it. I mean, this kind of told us how the deal happened the first time and the second time. You know, some of the key struggles, some of the key things he did to achieve the result he did, and then why he did it, what he's going to do next. I mean, I think we covered all the big bases we'd want to cover on this show. If any of you that listen to this want to hear more or have a question, Chris is on social media. He's on Twitter with us. He's and how can people get a hold of you, Chris, if they have any follow-up questions? I appreciate that you're writing about this and sharing your story.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. My handle is Toph, TOPH _Edwards. Feel free to email me. My email is chris@sanitasequity.com, SANITAS equity.com. Happy to talk. And if you guys have any questions, happy to jump on a call and talk to, you know, people in the space.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on. We'll link to that in the show notes, and congratulations.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Clay.
After you spend some time on the slopes, and after you go to Europe, I want to sell your next business.
Yeah, please do.
Let's do it.
I'm on your list. I was on the Bison newsletter, paying for your listing. So I'm always looking out for what you got going on.
All right, man. Well, let's talk later, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.